All right, good evening. Welcome along to the April 2024 Queensland meeting for the AEVA. Nice to see you all again, and got another bunch of EV content for tonight. I'm going to do my normal stuff. Leigh-Chantelle's going to have a chat to us about some of her autonomous vehicles and EV views within Australia. Are you wanting us to do any survey stuff in the future? Yeah, okay. So we can help you out with that, I'm sure, in the next few months. Francisco is going to tell us about an exciting thing he's working on at his factory, and Thomas and Norm have brought their Ora Cats in for us to have a look at tonight, and then we'll have our tea and coffee. All right, on to our regular EV charging infrastructure. The free ones. Once again, I just can't not do this slide because they're either not always broken or every single month it's different. So now St. Lucia is running at 80%. They were all broken last month. This week it came back online and it's running at 80%. So it's just next week it'll be broken for sure, guaranteed. So we've got a few new EV chargers around the place. The last few months there's been a few superchargers come online, and I've mentioned them as they've come online, but perhaps what I'd never mentioned before was each of these locations are now open to other EVs to charge, and I wasn't even sure myself which ones were and weren't, but there's probably about 4 or 5 closer to the CBD. So there's Maroochydore, there's Indooroopilly, there's the one in the city, the one at the Gold Coast. They're not available for non-Teslas, but just about all the others are. So I thought I'd mention that because I don't know if that's really that commonly well known. There was announced in middle of last year that they were going to open up the supercharger network, but I think that kind of all got turned on in the last sort of 6 months, and it just gives you, especially, I've mentioned this before, but as you're travelling north, there has been occasions where there's been a few gaps in the Quesh network, so to have that supercharger option there is definitely welcome around Calliope and Rockhampton there. So, all right, this is terrible news for me. 200 metres from my house, they've installed 2 75 kilowatt chargers. What a waste of money. I know. I've never used them. Now, you would think that, but for the last few months I was working Monday to Friday, so I couldn't charge up off my solar, so I was being a regular person and having to charge on the weekend where I could and then going to a charger. So that was a new experience for me, but yes. Always park on the left. Oh no, on the right, yeah, you're right. Always park on the right. The sharing gets put on the 25 kilowatt goes on the left. Now, I don't know why I've put 160 kilowatt on there. They're dual 75s, so I must have missed that one. But the next one, we've got Ampol have announced a few different places that they're coming soon. So we've got up at Britannia, which is near Sunshine Coast University Hospital. There's one going on at Morningside and one going in at Tingalpa. Now, they tend to be those faster speed ones that are claimed to be 150, but generally I think they're 150 if you have 800 volt charging, and they're 70 if you have 400 volt charging. So be aware of that, because all over PlugShare it seems to be confusing that they're going to a 150 kilowatt charger and only getting half the speed. Moving along. Cleveland. Come on, Gary, what's going on, mate? No, so a little story is I took a photo and put the chargers next to my house on PlugShare, and before I could even like come to the meeting, they'd already opened. So, I mean, someone, I don't know, maybe it's the landlords are being silly, but I mean, it's the same company.
I'm not sure what Christmas.
Exactly. Okie doke. What have we got next? I mentioned this one last month, Curraleigh. I don't believe that's open yet, so I'll mention that in the next coming months once it opens. That is, I believe, a higher speed charger, the 150. Now, we had the tyre shop down at Beaudesert gave people the option that are down that way to charge. Just can't think of the company. Can't think of the name of the company that put that one in, but it was more independent. Wasn't one of the big charging companies. But now that EV Networks have put one in at the Coles down there, you know, that's handy to have extra options down there. And there isn't really any other charging option anywhere down near Beaudesert, so that's handy if you need to move through that corridor. Next one. This has been on the slides for a very long time, but I thought I'd put it on again just to show that the community at least are doing something about it, because the commentary is that they are contacting the councils and the departments of transport to ask, you know, and Eureka, what's going on, because, you know, it just doesn't make any sense that it's been like this, but yeah, hopefully we'll get there one day. All right, there's been a little bit of changes in the pricing. I did mention last month that the Eureka or / ChargeFox Quesh 50 kilowatt chargers, 75 kilowatt chargers had gone from 30 up to 55 now. I noticed that the BP Pulse chargers, I checked their app and it now says that if you're charging during peak, which is 7 a.m. to midnight, so most of the time, it's 65 cents, but if you charge from midnight to 7 a.m. it's 55 cents. So I guess that's handy. I mean, I would have thought a lot of people would be charging around 6 a.m. if they were on the way to work or something like that, but sure.
Energy during the middle of the day would be really cheap and they wouldn't have
Yes, yeah, so that's a very good point that, well, you know, if you charge at 6, that's almost the peak of the morning, surely, isn't it? Like when people are waking up and putting the kettle on.
Like 10 till 4.
Yeah, don't worry about when, the renewable energy is pumping and, you know, cost goes negative. Make sure. Anyway, ChargeFox at the 350 kilowatt charger at Castledine that only does 210 kilowatts is 69 cents now. And just to go back to the non-Tesla superchargers, the non-Tesla users, they're using a supercharger. There's a variance in price depending on which supercharger you're at. I'm not sure why that is, but there seems to be a difference between 76 and 85 cents. Generally it's more like 82, 83 or 85, but I did see one that said 76. So petrol, we've done that.
That's consistent and it's site-based, or do we think it moves and changes?
Well, I went onto that Tesla app and I just clicked all around all the places and they were just all different prices. So I'm like, well, that's weird. But I mean, honestly, whether you're paying $39 or $41 to fill up, it's not really making much difference, is it? So it's only a few cents per kilowatt hour. So depending on how much you're filling up, it's probably not much of an issue. Okay, that was, I think that's most of the infrastructure. We have a few events just to go across. I've got a speaking gig on one of the days at the Solar and Storage Live at Brisbane. If anyone wants to attend that, and come and speak to me, and I'll get you exhibitor ticketing. But do it quickly, because yeah, just I won't have a show of hands now because I'll never remember. But
what day are you speaking?
it's I'm on the 2nd. Yeah. But this, as opposed to most EV events, this is a lot more commercial and you know, quite professional because it's at the convention centre and that type of thing. But there's a bit of an EV crossover portion, which is when I'm involved on the 2nd day. But I'll be doing an AEVA stand there for the 2 days. So if you want to attend one of the days and maybe don't mind looking after the stand for 10 minutes to let me have a walk around, then that'll be also handy. Gab's 60th birthday, we've mentioned a few times. Les is ready with the video.
4 minutes long.
Just a brief snippet. We don't need to see the whole event, but we're just going to show quickly what the go-karting looks like. Oh, this is the whole driver briefing. Geez, I just want to see the cars going around the track. I'm going with my son, so there's a few of us going. Okay, brilliant. It's I think it's $75, isn't it? So. All right. Yeah, that looks like fun. Okay, we won't do spoilers on the whole track, otherwise. I mean, they're taking it pretty. Is this like a warm-up lap or what? Like, why aren't they going faster? Are you allowed ramming? Is there ramming allowed? Oh yeah, okay. Okay, you get the idea. It's like we're actually at Gavin's birthday. So, it's Helensvale, isn't it? Just Oxenford, so just down the highway. All right, so that's going to be a bit of fun. The Toka guys are organising something similar to, I think they might have done it before, but something similar to what I did one time where, actually, can you go 2 slides forward?
Do you want to click them?
You never told me there was a clicker.
No,
Oh, you go.
It wasn't working, and then it just...
You really could have been messing with me tonight if you just started randomly clicking that. In preparation for my solar and storage. So, wow, look at that. It's like we're like professional or something. Okay, so they're doing an efficiency test, but rather than well, I mean, I think anyone's invited to this, but this is way more hardcore than what I was doing. They're taping up the charge ports and all sorts so that you don't slip in somewhere and get an extra kilowatt hour of, you know, charge. But I think that, you know, maybe there's prizes and stuff like that. So how many it's 222 according to that. We're starting at the Tesla supercharger. So I guess we did something a little bit different where we charged to the percentage, then drove and then recharged to that percentage. And I think perhaps that's the best way to do it. I don't know whether they're just going to do it where they're just like, you know, press on your dash and then see what because Teslas have a lot more software stuff that tells you your efficiency and all that. So I'm assuming, but that will be quite a fun day, I would expect. So, well, I can just flick, look at this, I'm loving it. That's on the 11th of May. I nearly asked Les to flick it. Yeah, like, and Mitch has been holding out on me. He's finally fixed the audio issue from like 5 years ago. Like, could have done that 5 years ago, but that's all right. It's all just efficiency tonight. All right, on the 18th of May, there is a New South Wales government event, and I think this is to tie in with the opening of the NRMA charger that was opened at the Cabarita Beach Bowls and Sports Club there. So they got a bit of a, they're going to do a bit of an EV display and that type of thing. So for those Gold Coast people that are in the audience, not too far away from you, really. And then we've got the rest of the future stuff coming up. I believe Jeff and I are attending the Noosa EV Expo. Gary tends to go to RSEQ Motorfest, so if anyone wants to be involved with those, let us know, and we'll organise something closer to the time. All right, that's just some info for everyone on Gav's party. Take a photo. I will actually email this to everyone anyway, just so that everyone has the opportunity to get the details. But essentially it's $75, so.
You might win a trophy.
Might win a trophy. And I think my son is definitely 13. Because it's, is it 13 plus? I've forgotten when his birthday is. All right, couple of bits and pieces of news, and then we'll get, yeah, I know, the good, the bad, and the ugly with me, all right? Tritium, having a fantastic time on the NASDAQ, all right? So I don't know how many of you are following this, and I'm sorry if you've bought Tritium shares, but this is essentially what's happened recently, and you can't make this stuff up, okay? The shares opened at $10 US back in October 2022. They went okay initially, and then they fell off a cliff, and they essentially got here somewhere, and the NASDAQ have specific requirements for you to stay on the NASDAQ as a company, and one of those requirements is that your share price is at least $1 for 30 consecutive days, right? So the share price wasn't $1, it was something like cents. It was like it was $1, then it was 60 cents, and it was 20 cents. They held an extraordinary general meeting on the 22nd of March, and they changed all of their shares into, for 200, they made that one share. So that changed a 7 cents share into a $14 share, or 200 7-cent shares into a $14 share. Since then, so that's what's happened there. Since then, this is where the share consolidation happened. It's continued to go down, but because they consolidated their share price, they now don't have enough publicly held shares, so they're possibly going to get delisted for a different reason now. So I'm not sure what they're going to do, but essentially there's been a 99.82% loss of share price. So that's rather troubling. I'm checking it. Well, I'm waiting for 1 cent, all right? I'm waiting for 1 cent. So essentially, the share price on the old scale is now just 2 cents, 0.018, so 2 cents on the old $10 scale. Yes, so not good news there.
There's a laser on top.
Oh, there's a laser.
The red.
There's a shark.
Woo! Mate, I'm so happy, LC. This is really for you, wasn't it?
It was for me.
It was for you.
I'm sharing my joy.
Okay. In true... Oh, you've let me down. Ah. we were going, if this thing stops working, oh, I'm taking it all back. All right. Thank you, thank you. You didn't push the button.
What did you do?
Look, I don't know what to say. All right, for video editing purposes, there was a pause here. Okay. The Ora Cat, seeing as we've got a couple in tonight, I thought I'd put this in the news, but essentially this was at Noosa last year, and if you can see on the side there, it says 46,000, or from 46,000, but you can see in the news what's happening with prices. There's obviously different levels. And now the cheapest one is 36,000, and that's actually before the 6,000 off. So if you fall into that category, then 30 grand for a brand new EV is pretty compelling. And that, yeah, this has only just happened. I only bring the latest of news, okay? Sorry if you've just bought an Ora Cat like in the last couple of weeks. Yeah. Well, what I put on here is, yeah, like, oh, there we go. Thought we had a hiccup there. So the original price was $36,600 according to the website. So it is actually a $700 drop. So, but any drop's welcome, isn't it? So. Okay, we've seen in a little photo of the BYD shark. Now, I put up a bunch of names of aquatic animals that I thought might be named for the future things. A shark was not one of them. I'm quite annoyed. I don't think EVs go well anymore. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that's quite a good point. I don't know why you're naming EVs after aquatic animals, but anyway, they are due here this year. So I promise I'll get one in, because I think they are a plug-in hybrid. But what we will see over the next couple of years is the Ford Ranger and a bunch of other things come online that are plug-in hybrids. There's not a great deal of detail at the moment about the size of the battery, but if we go off history, we don't tend to see much past 50 kilometre range in a plug-in hybrid, which is a bit silly. If they really aim for 100 kilometre range in a plug-in hybrid, I think that'd be pretty sweet compared to what's offered. And a 1.5 litre 4-cylinder petrol engine. So. All right, that's just about enough from me. Leigh-Chantelle.
I'm going to talk about my research for my PhD on autonomous vehicles, and there's a bit about electric vehicles in there too, so you'll be excited about that. So when people think about the future of transport, what do you think? So some people, it might be high-speed trains. What about better public transport? Maybe for us in here, it's more electric vehicles. For what? Wheelchair? Okay, cool. Whatever your future looks like. And for a lot of people, though, it is autonomous vehicles. And fully autonomous vehicles, in case you're not aware, that just means that the vehicle does everything for you at the highest level. Okay, so you don't have to do anything at all. And the reason that that can happen is because there's all networks that work in conjunction with that. So from traffic lights, charging stations, and it's able to sense other vehicles and pedestrians too. And then that makes all that information comes together, and then that makes all the driving decisions. And so we've had all these recent technological breakthroughs like artificial intelligence and electric vehicles, and that's making people think that we're on the cusp of autonomous vehicles, fully autonomous vehicles. And when that happens, there's a heap of benefits. So people are saying that more autonomous vehicles will be better mobility for other people, better access to being able to be driven, and that will be less greenhouse gases. But a lot of that is in the distant future when it is shared and fully autonomous, so not one of the earlier stages of autonomy. And then there's a heap of challenges as well on the other side of the coin. And these mostly involve aspects around privacy, how data is collected, how it's secured, less public transport, and even more cars might be used. So there's this discrepancy at the moment in the research between the utopian views and the dystopian views. So you've got aspects saying that technology will save us, and on the other hand, you've got technology will destroy us. So I'm really interested in the bits in the middle. So what's the reality of the situation? That's more interesting to me. So at the moment, you've got a heap of studies that lump all those different categories of autonomy together, and they're trying to say that that means one thing when it could mean different things for the different stages. They're misrepresenting technology capabilities and the required infrastructure, and they're focusing on individual views and behaviours and disregarding anything related to social aspects except for ethics. And if you think about different people that work in different industries, they all have different views on what's important, they all have different beliefs, attitudes, and this can impact things that are incentivised and decentivised. So we've seen that with EVs, right? How people view electric vehicles, it depends on what they do with that or what they want to do. So that's really important to identify and explore these views that different people have, and that's helping us to prepare for and maybe even influence how the autonomous vehicles will be rolled out. So I'm interested in looking at the reality. So at the moment, technology is outpacing where the government is with a lot of legislation. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that with artificial intelligence, for example. And there's a history of slow response to new technologies around transport. There's a heap of misrepresentation and exaggerations of the autonomous vehicle capabilities, and these aspects can undermine trust. So for example, when you're told that your Tesla will do all these things for you and you get in it and something happens and you crash, you're like, oh, okay, that's not what I was sold. And these experiences can influence expectations for tomorrow. And I'm using electric vehicles as a precursor to some of those because I think it's really interesting. So the continuous deployment of electric vehicles helps to identify similar challenges that might impact autonomous vehicles. And this is a really novel area to look into, which people love hearing about in research. It's still growing, consequences are unknown, and it impacts various industries in various ways. So this is a bit about the framework that I'm using for my research, and it's called the socio-technical systems method or theory. And the thing that's really interesting here is if you think about technology, this area here, and you think about, okay, we've got something that's coming out in society now, and it might be ready in a technology way, right? But if people aren't willing to accept it, as in social, then what's going to happen? We've seen this happen with electric vehicles, right? We've seen a lot of pushback from certain people about certain technologies that are available. So when you get that right, that's called socio-technical system joint optimization, and that's what we're aiming for, okay? But a lot of people are focusing on the technical aspects without the social. So I'm interested in how that interacts. And then there's also some outside influences, and they can include things like the government, big tech, how businesses make decisions, and even things like infrastructure. So I've done 2 studies with focus groups. And my first study looked at autonomous vehicles. And the research questions, so the main aim of that study was to find out what a variety of Australians' views were if they believed themselves or the industry they worked in could be impacted by the autonomous vehicle rollout in Australia. And we were looking at perceived benefits and potential challenges. And here's the participants that I had. I had 82 participants over 29 focus groups, which is a lot and excessive, and it took me a long time to go through the data, some of you know. And you can see the participants, mostly male, 78%, and we had all Australian states and territories represented with a heap of people from Queensland. Also, this is showing the different professions that people worked in. Most of the people involved were from technology and cybersecurity, transport, logistics and fleet, and lawmaking and government. And you would also be interested that 42% of people who I interviewed in my focus groups owned an electric vehicle. And the methodology that I used, so once I got these focus groups happening with all these people, then I got transcripts. So once I had edited and de-identified the transcripts, I printed them all out, and it was over 400 pages of transcripts, a lot. And this is how I did it here. So if you can see some of my writing, I'm coding the information from the transcripts. And instead of just looking for keywords like, say, technology or environment, I'm reading to find what the theme is, what the main idea is from that information. And then I'm using that to work out the major themes and sub-themes, and then it started to look like this. And so the findings from that were with my thematic analysis. So I used a process called codebook thematic analysis, and we identified 6 themes and 18 sub-themes. And I'll just say about the first theme, which was called reimagining society. And this is where people thought that autonomous vehicles could bring really great ideas and new things into society and travel that were mostly positive. And there was some different sub-themes as well around efficiency, social inclusion, non-ownership of cars, climate, and also what is the real issue to solve. And I also, with all that information that I got from the focus group interviews, I had a lot of unexpected findings that weren't related to that question that was talking about autonomous vehicles. And so one of them was I got a lot of information on electric vehicles, so that became my study too. And I had 2 other aspects that are not part of my thesis, but I'm working on with some research assistants as papers. And so this is an example of my findings mapped onto the socio-technical systems theory. And if you have a look here, we're looking at perceived benefits. So these are some aspects that people raised in my focus groups that were the benefits of autonomous vehicles. And they're the orange bits here. So you can see one theme in the social section has a lot of benefits, and one theme in the technical subsystem has 1 benefit. So these would be areas like, say, climate related, social inclusion, that would be good to promote more. And then when we look at the challenges, what can you see in that, just from the orange? Lots, hey? And throughout all of the themes. So the other 2, we only had a few, but the challenges here are throughout. And if you've also noticed, these 3 here only are challenges. And they relate to cybersecurity. Oh, where's my little thing? Cybersecurity in the technical systems, and the external systems has government related, and then the one at the bottom is big tech. So they would be areas that really need to be worked on at the moment. My clicker's not working now, Les, so we do need... Oh, there we go. Did you do that or me? You did that, okay. Okay.
You've run your battery.
Might have, yeah. And so good segue into electric vehicles, which was my study too. So many of the participants that I interviewed were equating electric vehicles with autonomous vehicles. And as electric vehicles are present now in Australia, I think it's really interesting to see what exists now that might be benefits or challenges that need to be sorted out now to see how things might happen in the future. And here's a couple of quotes here. So Paris Marx, they say that electrification is an integral piece of the auto-oriented transport visions that tech executives are talking about. And also there's a lot of researchers that see that the future of vehicles is when you have a smart electric car running on green energy, utilising various levels of automation up to a fully autonomous vehicle. Next please, Les. And then so for my study too, the question here I asked was about the perspectives of Australian stakeholders and society on the continuous development of electric vehicles that might impact how autonomous vehicles are rolled out. The perceived benefits and potential challenges, and those same 82 participants and the methodology and what I did were used, but this was done as a separate analysis and coded at the end. And the findings here, we had 4 different themes and 13 sub-themes. And one of the themes was a theme called Can We Make It? And that explores that participants believe that Australia is just not ready at the moment and a lot needs to be addressed. And this starts with the Australian government, policies and laws, and it links to businesses and industry, like training for new technologies, updating infrastructure and emergency response. There's also marketing hype on the reality of EV technology capabilities that's also discussed. And there's a few sub-themes there. So here's the findings, and this is the potential challenges. So as you can see with the AV mapping, the challenges are throughout the whole areas too. But if you have a look, pretend I have my little red dot, you can see some of them, as well as having a challenge, they also say a solution. So for example, with lack of understanding, that's seen as a challenge, but a solution would be, if people don't understand about electric vehicles, we'll give them a physical drive in the car, and then that helps them understand it more. And then the perceived benefits, they're also scattered throughout the 4 themes. And they would be the areas that need to be promoted more, okay? And so those 2 studies that I had with those themes that I got and the mapping that I showed you, that is then linking to a questionnaire. So that's my next step, which I'm in the process of at the moment. So that is informing the questions that I ask in my questionnaire. And we're aiming to look at similarities and differences that were raised with those stakeholders, so 82 people from different industries, to a broader Australian audience, so a lot of different types of people. And the questions I ask will be related to driving and technology experience, autonomous and electric vehicles, and some demographic information. So I'll be comparing things like EV owners versus non-EV owners, different professions, things like that. And I know you'll ask me what I'm going to do next, so I thought I'd have a slide with that one. So I've got a extension for my scholarship to the 22nd of August, so I'm planning on putting in my thesis around that time. And originally I aimed to be a lecturer in cyber psychology, which is my passion. And cyber psychology, if you just think of psychology, how we think, feel and behave, and you mix that with, say, technology and digital devices, that's the stuff I'm interested in. So I come from a consulting speaking background and doing the cyber psychology, and now I can talk about disruptive technologies. I'll see what's on offer. I'm sure there'll be lots of opportunities, and I'm going to have a little bit of a break in Indonesia first. Yeah, I guess lecturing, open to. I do a lot of workshop creations and course creation. I've been really interested in the methodology, like how I designed the studies that I did and helping people learn that, because in psychology we weren't taught some of the methods I used really well, so that's been interesting for me. And I also want to publish my findings in a book. So if you would like to get information when my survey's out, there's a QR code, but I also will send the information to John. And so that hopefully got to work on a few things. We're piloting it next week, so hopefully by next month. And yeah, if you have questions, let me know. Thank you. At the back.
One thing that I wanted to ask in particular, we had the technology available for about 100 years to have electric autonomous vehicles, and yet we still see train drivers. Still on the camera, mate. So how quickly do we think there's going to be an uptake in seeing that on the road if we're still seeing people driving trains when that technology's been around for about a century?
Well, the electric vehicle, like you said, over 100 years, and it's only really getting into more people using them, right? Like we've seen a lot more Teslas on the road, BYDs on the road, and that's taken a long time. And, you know, why has that taken a long time? You could say there was certain people that didn't want that to happen, right? So there's all those aspects, and they could also be aspects in regards to autonomous vehicles. What was that? Planes, yeah. And there's some autonomy that's used in certain places, like planes, some of the trains, and some like places that are, you know, like, what are they? The mines that have the trucks. So there's a lot of places that are not public space, that is privately owned, and they're on a track, goes back and forth. That's fine. A lot of that's happening. But to have it out in the real world, there's a lot of issues to deal with before that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, Jeff?
Not autonomous. Remember I just said it's on a track.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've had that technology for a
Yeah.
year and we're yet to see it everywhere on roads.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why do we expect this is going to be any quicker?
I don't, personally.
It's a real world thing.
Yeah.
I've been involved with some very lengthy discussions regarding autonomous vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about infrastructure, we talk about all that sort of thing. Now, there's this in the outset.
You might have to pause for a moment.
It's not all autonomous or not.
One of those autonomous trains.
You never know. Maybe the driver's only there to watch all the time happen.
Sounds more like a helicopter or something, doesn't it?
What is happening or what has been happening with these discussions, we talk about infrastructure. Well, the first thing that we actually discussed was the loss of garages. You don't need them. Shopping centre car parks will possibly become polling stations. You won't need traffic calming because the vehicle will drive at the speed limit. All our traffic lights throughout the city now know where you are by your Bluetooth.
Yeah, and these are...
Why
Go on, John.
Yes.
Oh, let's come back, John. It's just the vibe that you're going to fix it. I think that's enough. Yeah, they are all really good ideas and ideals that people have with how the future of transport will look. But you have to just bring it back to the reality of now and think about those things. So, for example, if we want all of Australia to be able to be at the same place, what about the roads that can't even get fixed? Like in, you know, Made in Cairns, friends in Toowoomba have still got issues for, you know, 6 months, years, whatever. You need all the roads to be connected. then you can definitely not have to deal with the lights and things like that. But you need all these different things. It's not just the car to be ready. So that's the issue.
One of the big things that came out of that was lack of congestion.
Congestion.
Because the autonomous vehicles will be able to drive away from the lights all as one.
Yes, that's the ideal at the top once everything's working. Yes.
An equal bunch of information about how to create new congestion
Yeah.
as well.
And if you think, say for example, Elon Musk's really on about the the robo-taxi, that everyone can spend this amount of money and then you'll make all this money from it. So if you imagine people who can afford it, with an exclamation point or an asterisk there, you have a lot of people just putting cars out to make money. And if there's no parking places, like another one of the things you were saying, where do the cars go? So there's a lot of, and that also if they're electric, that could be an issue in regards to fires and all that sort of stuff. So there's lots of things to think about. Lots of things to think about.
Petrol and diesel, so that's all right.
While this discussion was all going on, China already had a lot of this going on. But I'll tell you now, the Lord Mayor was able to go home from City Hall to out past Sunnybank in a car, and no one touched the steering wheel.
Yep. Lots of things happening.
It was happening about 7 years ago.
Lots of things moving forward. And Jeff's got a question at the back.
It's just, I'm probably thinking a little bit further. Maybe some of the disruptive technologies could be called evolutionary. If you went to something which was, I consider, truly disruptive, things like drones, I mean, you go to Dubai Airport, because the thing is, I think, when you have the disruptive technology, from a technological point of view, autonomy in the air is much simpler because you've got true 3 dimensions rather than limited 2D.
Yep.
So I'm just wondering whether we may never have truly autonomous cars because it may hop straight to a 3-dimensional.
Yeah, and you're right, when research talks about disruptive technology, drones are used a lot, and in particular in regards to army and defence. So of course, like most of technologies come from defence, so there's a lot of money in those areas. And yeah, that's happening a lot, just depends on who's funding it, doesn't it? Or who gets the space in the sky, or how, that's laws and regulations, right? So how do you make those decisions? And yeah.
I'll ask the last question because we've got a couple other things going on, and you guys can catch up with LC afterwards. What was on your actual time that you spent doing all this? What was the most surprising thing that came out of your time, or maybe like an opinion that was very interesting, or like what was the most outlandish thing that you heard? If you're
Outlandish, yeah. I really liked, because there was a lot of EV people, obviously, as I said, and a few people here, and that was interesting because I just bought an EV when I was doing the focus group, so it was really cool, as we all know, to meet other people that have similar beliefs and people you can chat to. So I had some really good conversations with people that were new to the EV space as well, so that was really cool. One thing that really impacted me the most, that I was like, felt, was a young girl who spoke about how her grandmother had an accident or something. She couldn't drive anymore, okay? And her mother had to be a carer for her grandmother. So she stopped working, she stopped doing everything, she couldn't afford a lot of stuff, they had to sell things, couldn't work. There was a lot of problems that came from her mother not having access to be able to be transported to places. Probably understand if you've had to be in charge of caring for someone. So a lot of people would see that mobility for people that can't access it at the moment would be a really good thing. But then if you look at the research, the money goes into the people who have the money, right? And the people that need it the most are maybe not being focused on. And that's a social aspect, right? And that's also a government or policy aspect.
So I guess when you think about autonomous vehicles, a lot of the time people envisage, oh, well, I'll go and buy a Model 3 and just turn autopilot on and it can go and earn me some money and I'll get in early. But people aren't really thinking about the social impact that someone who has no access to transport can then suddenly have transport and be more valuable to society or more integrated into society. So
yeah, and so my thing is we can't solve social, systemic issues with technology.
All right, thank you very much.
You.
Very interesting. And yeah, there will be a subsequent survey in the next few months going out, so we'll definitely help you with that. Francisco, you're up, mate. We've got a photo. All right, so I'm going to ask Francisco some questions and then you can ask him some questions, but essentially, this is a little project to take wrecked EV batteries out, or batteries out of wrecked EVs, and get them hooked up to Francisco's workshop to power the workshop. Is that pretty right?
Yeah, at the moment.
So I guess can you maybe explain in a high level way what it takes to even consider setting this up? So we can obviously see you need the battery packs out of so that's a Model 3 battery pack, and that's a Nissan Leaf battery pack, and we've got some inverters on the wall there. Okay, so what is it required to even consider that you could get a car battery to talk to an inverter?
No, it's running at pack voltage. So you don't modify the pack. You take it exactly as it is from the car. Sorry? Yeah. So I have a control box and I try to make the battery pack think that it's still in the car, and I try to make the inverter think that it's got a commercial battery. So the inverter thinks that it's got I can't remember what brand of battery I got, that I managed to look for, to decode the messages. And then I do the same for the messages on the car. And then basically my box in the middle makes them think that they're where they're not. And the battery pack turns the contactors on, and the inverter draws power thinking that it's connected to a normal battery.
Yes, that's the plan. I was a little bit kind of sidelined involved with this because this is sort of what we did for my battery that I have at my property. And this is how I generally explain it, is that the inverter's speaking Japanese and the battery speaking Chinese, and you've got to put the interpreter in between to get them to talk to each other. And that's what Francisco has developed. That's just in its raw state there because it's still under development, but perhaps the Model 3 battery talks American, so there's different languages per battery, and but once you can get each.
A lot of them actually use CAN bus. This one uses CAN bus, but I could translate it to Modbus as well if I wanted, because essentially what I do is I read all the data from the battery. So I need to send the correct messages to the battery so that it thinks that it's in the car, and it will close the contactors and stay on. And then I collect that data into my control box, and then I can then translate that data into whatever I want. So it doesn't actually have to be CAN bus to go onto the inverter. The inverter can be anything else.
Yes, that's right, mate.
Yeah, actually,
That's exactly the solution, yeah.
with a battery this big, you make money from being on the grid.
Transmission energetics the others are not that like your idea.
Probably, well,
Because they won't be relevant after, if
in-
everyone has a battery this size in their house, why would you need the grid? Because when you've got EV networks installing DC fast chargers 200 metres from your house, can't you just because the thing is, these are battery packs on the floor in a workshop, but what's to necessarily stop this technology developing to the car itself, and sorry to hijack the actual what you're saying, but I've had this idea for a while that essentially in 10 years' time you're going to have 300 kilowatt hours of battery sitting in your driveway. The fringes are doing it. But why, if you've got 300 kilowatt hours of battery pack in your driveway at home, do you necessarily need the grid? If you run out, you can just go to the DC fast charger and charge up, and then.
I think that there's a few issues. One is that not everybody is going to have solar and a battery at home, which means that there are some people that are going to be buying electricity, and it would be advantageous to be able to buy the electricity from a house that is not too far away, rather than having a picket plant putting power during peak demand. Yep.
The advantages are obvious for cars with lithium-ion, but for storage where weight is not really a consideration, low-tech, what's the advantages of a high-tech solution where you have like CAN bus or Modbus, expensive controllers, difficult things, or just going low-tech? I think like the gentleman who was there said, lead-acid batteries, you can float them with 2 transistors, and it's really, really simple. Yeah.
I would say cost.
Yeah. Well, the thing with lead-acid batteries is that if you buy the batteries, the cost of the lead-acid batteries, by the time you work out how many cycles you can get and all of that kind of stuff, they are actually more expensive than using lithium batteries. So that's
and how much was the battery?
It's a secret.
So let's go the way. How much is the Rex Model 3 worth at the moment?
Well, it's not really a secret. I'm just joking.
If you actually want,
12 grand for a Rex
it can be less than that.
Yeah, and it can be less than that, but it's
Right.
some that in that ballpark.
So
That's got 4 times more energy than a Powerwall, which is 12 grand.
But to give you an idea, my 7.5 kilowatt lead acid, it cost me $750 for that.
you're an electrical engineer, aren't you?
Nothing.
Yeah. But essentially, you're looking at a $8,000 to $12,000 rec. I mean, this isn't for everyone, obviously, right? But you're paying $8,000 to $12,000 for something equivalent to a $50,000 commercial battery. Obviously, there's concerns there around insurance and safety and other bits and pieces, but I mean, if you're one of the crowd here that have that technical ability, then having a 50 or 100 kilowatt hour pack at home is like a bit of a game changer, isn't it? So
What's the fire risk like?
most of the cars don't actually get to damage the battery. If any car had a battery damage, it's probably so wrecked that probably wouldn't even consider it. Most of the cars that I've been getting, the crash hasn't actually got anywhere near the battery. Sorry?
They're reasonably minor crashes.
Quite a few of them have got all of the airbags fired, but the thing is that for the crash to actually hit the battery from a frontal crash, it would have actually got your legs. I actually have you got the?
I don't think I've got the photo, unfortunately.
there is a video of a BYD that I got.
So Francisco,
Yeah,
Francisco's got a BYD, and the front of the BYD is completely gone. Like it's almost like a BMW i3 where the bonnet's only about that long. Like there's no bonnet obviously, but like it's just the motor and it still drives.
yeah.
So you can still drive this crashed BYD.
It's actually missing.
And the front of the car's about that thick.
Can
Yeah.
you test the batteries if they are okay in an accident like that?
Okay, the car does an isolation test, or the BMS does an isolation test, and if it fails, it generally doesn't close the contactors. So if you don't have an isolation failure, then it's very unlikely that the battery has actually been damaged. The batteries are actually designed to take 20 Gs. So if you can imagine what would happen to the people inside on a 20 G hit, and the battery is supposed to survive that. I've actually got an MG, which is not mine, where somebody must have driven it over a traffic island or something, and it's actually put a big gouge under the battery. So that actually damaged the coolant part on the bottom. And we're going to pull it apart at some point and actually probably make a video to see how badly damaged it is. But the car doesn't actually throw any errors other than it doesn't have enough coolant. So it's missing the coolant, and that's about it. And other than that, it drives. There's nothing wrong with it. When we pull it apart, we'll have a look and see how much of an indentation it made the hit inside the cells. But you actually have to do something seriously. You need a really serious crash to actually damage the battery. You know, either that or you got to do it in a very special way. Like most of the crashes that you have where somebody runs in the front of or the back of another car, a lot of those they never ever get anywhere near the battery.
Okay. I think Mitch has got a question.
Yep.
I was just going to ask, does the interpretation unit between the battery and the inverter need to be coded to individual batteries, or can it be if you change a battery to another battery?
You mean of the same type?
Each one has a different language.
So, for example, if you take a Tesla Model 3 battery and you plug another Tesla Model 3, it will work. What I'm doing at the moment is every time I get another battery, I come up with a bit like an interpreter, but I can also look at the messages, and by looking at all the messages that are being transmitted, I can more or less guess what type of battery it is. So what I'm actually trying to do is set it up so that if you plug in a battery, that it knows, it will actually identify what battery it's got, and it will.
That's pretty smart.
Do you set the discharge settings in the inverter, or do you have to then also put discharge settings in the interpretation unit?
No, what I do is the battery, the BMS from the battery will actually tell you what the minimum and maximum voltages are, how much current you can draw, and you know, all of that kind of stuff. So what I do is I take all of those values and I transfer them to the inverter, so that the inverter is actually using more or less the same values that the car would be using. So when the state of charge is getting close to zero, then it tells the inverter to stop discharging.
Because legally you can do that under Section 6, under 5139, like you could reconnect it or standby connect it.
Sorry?
But the inverter is the legal obligation as far as the 5139 compliance.
Yeah.
From a CEC, like installer perspective.
We'll be asking you these questions.
See, as far as I know, the inverter is the one that has to have the.
That's the one that injects the
Yes, because for a start, the battery is actually electrically isolated from the mains. There is actually electrical isolation, and the battery has no control over whether it charges or discharges. The battery is just telling the inverter when it can, how much it can charge and how much it can discharge. So realistically, the battery cannot actually affect the grid. About the only thing that you need to consider is. Sorry?
Are they sun-roads?
They are so far.
So you're connected to the grid at the moment, are you?
Yeah. I need to use the grid to be able to test it. Sorry?
I said you're better than me, I can't. Mine's a vehicle at home, effectively, I've got to disconnect from the grid.
I got an electrician to hook up the inverters, so I didn't actually do the connection.
Yes. So that is different to a car. So it's, yeah, that's the difference.
So can I just ask a question? So perhaps we all think this is brilliant, but could you play devil's advocate in terms of why this isn't a good idea for safety? Like if someone was to have this at home, what would, and it was all packaged up, it was just the battery, is there anything that could go wrong?
It can fall on top of you. It's 475 kilos.
Okay, but that would be designed not to fall on top, right?
The batteries, the battery packs on cars are actually designed to a much higher level than what you actually get for a home battery. Yeah, I mean, this battery is supposed to be able to take 20 Gs deceleration. There is no, and it's also more waterproof than any battery that you're actually going to buy at home. It's got all of the safeties that a car has. So I don't believe that these batteries would actually be any less safe than a house battery.
Do you think you could store them on the side?
Yeah, what I'm doing is I am actually making a frame. So this is mainly intended to be for industrial buildings. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a frame onto the battery so that the outside of that frame will be a standard size, so that then I can have a rack here, and then I can put different batteries from different cars and still keep the same frame. So the inverters are probably going to be bolted to the frame and pre-wired. So if you wanted to install this in some place, you pick the whole thing, you put it in, and then you connect your solar and your mains, and you're done. So you don't have to install the inverters. But also, the frame that I am putting on around the battery will also allow you to stand it up and bolt it against a wall. So you should be able to do that. But yeah, the main purpose of this is really for industrial buildings where you don't really need to make it look good.
But that's a proper Tesla power law, not this 13 kilowatt hour stuff. You go to 55 kilowatt hours.
Are you running coolant on it as well? Or is it so low power?
Yeah, you could run coolant, but the charge and discharge rate is so low that you don't need it. The pack also measures. The pack. That's still no. The pack actually, yeah. The pack actually reports the cell temperatures, and that can also get reported to the inverter. And the cell temperature it doesn't change. It's pretty much ambient temperature.
If you're like at 0.1C or 0.2C or something.
Well,
like that.
those inverters can do 20 kilowatts. So this is basically 0.5 C at the maximum.
That's a lot.
Sorry? 0.5 C. Yeah, but the thing is that
back to the grid.
In this,
It's not a lot for the battery.
It's not a lot for the battery.
it's not. Yeah, but the thing is that when you look at what it does during the day, when the inverter is producing 20 kilowatts, the building is also consuming power, so you don't actually get 20 kilowatts into the battery. And on top of that, if I was actually going to run at 20 kilowatts that consistently, then I would actually have to put more batteries because it wouldn't last very long. Probably this one's 55 kilowatt hours, so that means a bit over 2.5 hours. So the inverters have got two inputs. So I can actually put two of these batteries onto one inverter without paralleling. For the LFP batteries, it would also be possible to parallel two batteries and hook them to the one input of the inverter.
You could have 4 on one inverter.
Yeah, so it really depends. The thing is, if you had 4 batteries on one inverter, that would be about 220 kilowatt hours for a 20 kilowatt inverter, which basically means that you even running flat out, it probably wouldn't actually run out. So it would most likely, if you actually needed that much capacity, most likely you would actually have 2 inverters because you probably need more peak power.
So I asked you about the some of the concerns, but now I'm going to ask you about the greatest opportunity that could come from this. Okay, I already kind of know the answer, right? But what do you think, if all of your dreams came true, what would actually be the best outcome for this?
It's going to make a lot of money from Amber.
Yeah. So I think offline or prior to the meeting, like potentially if you have all these batteries hooked up and they're just soaking up the solar during the day, or but then you were thinking perhaps there could be some software designed to buy and sell at the most appropriate times to maximise the thing. So because once you've got massive storage, you can make essentially way more money than your 10 kilowatt hour at home, right? So.
Sorry? Say again?
There's a lot. Well, the thing is that once
if you see some start right off Teslas on Pickles, don't bid against me.
Yeah.
If you want some parts,
there might not be in the future once people realise.
If you want some parts, I've got a lot of everything.
Most people want to know batteries, and the market's going to take off exponentially.
Yes.
The number of wrecked cars are not going to be able to supply that number of batteries.
But you've got to have the know-how to get that technology to work.
Yeah, but he's hoping to do that and then sell it in competition with power.
I mean, if you look at how many cars are actually sold on Pickles that are wrecked, if you consider that if half of those cars were electric, you're looking at, I don't know, 20 or 30 batteries a day. There's a lot of. Sorry.
Yeah. That's how many are going right now. There's well, it's like 5 a day at the moment consistently, and it goes peak as well. There are lots and lots of vehicles being wrecked.
There are at least.
Everybody really speaks in great absolute terms of we were talking about going full autonomous next week, and we're also talking about needing 1 million batteries across the country. It's this stuff takes time. You've got to start somewhere, and 1,500 batteries. If you could sell 1,500 of these batteries in a year, I know that you can dance in a big old I reckon
the thing is that also there are more cars coming online. When I started doing this, I was actually considering the Teslas mostly because there were a lot more of them at the auctions. But now there's a lot more BYDs, and it's... Sorry? I think that's going to be the shipping is going to be a big problem. I think the easiest way is just to buy the crash ones here. The Teslas, there are maybe 2 or 3 Teslas every week. That's just on one. There's more. At the moment, there's more than what I can deal with, and that's just Teslas. There's BYDs. Atto 3s, there's quite a lot of them, and I think MG4s are probably going to be the next lot because they're selling a lot.
Well, you'll probably find, I want to say 2 things. There's actually a disparity as well, because we had the Cupra Born in here the other week, and it had 82 or 83 kilowatt hour battery, right? But as a wreck, that's still 8 to 10 grand, right? And you've got a Model 3 that's 8 to 10 grand, and that's a 50 kilowatt hour battery. So the batteries aren't getting priced in. But the second thing I think we might want to consider is that there's a window here of the opportunity to do it, because from what I read, it's actually quite more effective, efficient to recycle the batteries into new batteries than it is mining it all over, starting from scratch and going and mining it. So I think you'll probably find as resources diminish, if they do, or who knows what happens in that space, but they might try to start snaveling up all the wrecks to turn into new batteries.
Not quite, because what you can actually pay for a wreck with a battery is actually a lot more than what you can actually pay for a wreck just to recover the battery. On that subject, there is a company in Australia that is trying to recycle batteries, and the reason I started this project is because the guy that actually, there's a guy that wants to build a device to discharge the battery so that they can shred them. And what has actually happened is that as he's actually spent more time, he's actually starting to realize that he is probably going to make more money by trying to use the batteries than to actually shred them and get the materials. So it is very likely that what is going to happen is that the batteries will actually get used for energy storage, and then when they're actually getting, too low on capacity, then they will be shredded. What I think we need to make sure is that the government doesn't go and do something stupid, and then it stops being able to...
That's a real possibility.
Yes.
That's the window of opportunity that I'm saying. My example was just one thing, but this is a point in time where we can do this. We should.
But how do you do that? How are you going to scale it?
Well,
how to scale the recycle? You mean the batteries?
No, like say your idea you got at the moment that you're working on that you show you worked. How do you get it from doing it at your place to doing it for all the people that are going to want it?
Well, first of all, you've got to wait until there are more crash cars, right? There is a limited supply from the point of view that you can't actually do 3 or 4 times more. You're basically dependent. You depend on how many cars are available, but as the number of electric cars are sold, then there's going to be more available. At the moment, I'm trying to use only the Tesla batteries and maybe the BYDs. I got that crash BYD was actually to try to use the batteries because the BYDs are starting to become more and cheaper. But there is a fair amount of effort to actually decode all of the messages to be able to get the battery to run. So I'm not if there is a BMW or a Mercedes, I'm not going to spend any time on it because there aren't enough of them. So there is a certain amount of, those ones might not be worthwhile recycling, so they'll take, the Leaf don't have enough capacity to make it worthwhile.
I'm just thinking about the Leaf, so that pack out of my Leaf, you've got a battery management system in there.
Yeah.
You can now buy replacement cells for Leaf packs, which Graham's been doing.
Yeah, I got one of them right now. He bought the cells with a Chinese little controller, and it doesn't work very well.
No, the controller doesn't work well, but if you have that battery management system attached to some newer cells, some new cells, you could probably do a whole pack for the same ballpark money.
I think the key to this is not to touch the pack. You basically take the pack out of the car and you plug it in, and then it works. The moment you open it up, it's just too much work. That's one of the problems with using these cells. Like, for example, using the Leaf cells for making a different battery. You basically got to open up the pack. You got to take all of the cells and you got to, put them all together, rewire them, bus bars. So the amount of effort that is required to do that is actually, by the time you add up all the labor and all of the extra materials that you've got to put in to make it into a box and all of that kind of BMS and all that, it's not worth it. Yeah, or whatever. So the basic idea of this is you take the battery out and you don't modify it. You just use it exactly the way it came. The most that you need to do is basically put the plugs in and put some kind of junction box to connect the output of the battery to the inverter. One of the things that need to be sorted is that the fuse in the battery is actually very big compared to what the wire that you've actually got going to the inverter. So I basically need to have a junction box where you've got the thick cables going into this junction box, and then inside I need to put a set of fuses to protect the thin cable that goes to the inverter. Because the inverter can only draw about 50 amps. It does 25 amps per input. So if you had two of these batteries connected to one inverter, then you basically need maybe a 30 amp fuse, whereas the fuse inside the battery is like 1,000 amps. So it will blow the wire. Yeah. So that's most of the work involved. You need to put a control a box to do that. There's also a control module that goes into that, so that needs to be attached to the battery. So. But the main idea really is to not touch the battery, just use it exactly as it comes out of the car.
So we'll just take one more question, and then we'll hear from the Wyndhams, about the about the Ora Cats.
Just one last question. Have you investigated getting something like the BYD that has vehicle to load and actually modifying the power electronic stage so that all the communications are still there? And the power electronics, the inverter component, could be changed from 3 kilowatts to...
I think the BYD does. I think most of... Okay, the chargers that do bidirectional charging, I don't really see any reason why it couldn't actually go 30 amps in or 30 amps out. I think the reason it's limited is because the plug that the bit that you plug in is only rated at 10 amps. So... well, you already have, it's already isolated.
It's using plus and minus around the neutral point. The neutral is in the middle, so it's got the wrong neutral.
I haven't actually tried, but you can probably connect the neutral.
He sounds like he knows what he's talking about. So.
Anyway, what I think, basically, to get a car to connect to one of these inverters, all you would need to do is to have the software in the car to allow you to discharge the battery through the CCS port. All of the protocols supposedly have been set. It's just a question of whether the manufacturers would actually implement them. And if you could do that, then all that we need to do is get the car to close the contactors onto the charge port, and then you could connect it directly to an inverter. So it would be mostly a software thing and a little bit of hardware. So this control box would also be able, if we put a CHAdeMO plug, I should be able to plug in a CHAdeMO, a car with a CHAdeMO plug, and you would actually be able to go both ways. I haven't tried, but it would be just like treating it as a different battery.
It's because you can.
It's getting added to the list.
The problem is the plug is too expensive. They're about, it's not worth it. But what I'm trying to get to is that it's only a matter of software. It's not really a lot of effort to go to both ways. So it really would come down to the manufacturers implementing the bidirectional port. The bidirectional, probably not. There is a possibility of still doing something with the cars that have got vehicle to load. And one idea was you still need to have a battery at home, because if you unplug your car, then you obviously got no battery. So you still need to have a battery.
There you go. That's the point of energy, don't you?
But the thing is that if you actually had, say, maybe a 5 kilowatt or a 10 kilowatt hour battery, then what you can do is, and this is something that I'm going to try to make at some point, is to make a charger that can actually switch between being a charger or being a vehicle to load. So then what it would do is, when you want to put energy into the car, then you basically behave as a charger and it charges it through the AC port. And when you want to take energy from the car, then it switches to a vehicle to load, and it uses the 240 volts to run a charger that charges that puts the power into your storage battery. So if you do that, you could potentially plug the car in and leave it plugged in, and then it would be more or less bidirectional. It wouldn't actually be very quick. It would probably take a little bit of time to switch. But the thing is that if you look at, for example, a house might use 20 kilowatt hours a day, or say 30 kilowatt hours a day. So 2.4 kilowatts over 24 hours is 50 kilowatt hours. So that basically means that all you need to have is a small battery to take the peaks, and you could potentially use the battery in your car to run your house for a few days.
Yeah.
Sorry?
That's what he's planning to do in his vehicle.
So when you haven't got the solar and there's been a long period of no sunlight, you use that to top up the battery, then drive the car away if you have to get a charge for it later.
I think that's at some point I'm going to get around to doing that. I just got too many things to do at the moment. Yeah, too many.
Only when we need to start prepping for the zombie apocalypse.
Look, with a big enough battery, I think you can still survive the zombie apocalypse, because even during cloudy days, you still get some solar. You just got to be a little bit more. You don't want to drive around too much.
Yeah. When your battery's flat at night.
Sorry?
When your battery's flat at night and you've got no solar, use the vehicle load to charge the battery.
Yeah, that's. I think the way that I see the vehicle to load is to, if your battery is running flat, then you can take your car, go to a fast charger, and then come back and plug it in, so that you don't have a grid connection. But with a big battery, you actually make enough money out of the grid that I think it's not worth disconnecting. I was actually going to disconnect, and then I managed to get into AEVA, and if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't be connected to the grid right now. Anyway.
All right, well...
Sorry?
Well, because they're not going under the same stress as
you think about it
a
this
car,
way.
so...
These batteries are rated at 3,000 cycles. So if you cycle that 50 kilowatt hour battery once a day, that's 10 years to drop to 80% of capacity. Yes.
Might be 10 to 20% degraded already.
Hell no.
Most of these ones.
You won't find a Tesla out there with a 20% degraded battery. Even the 2014 ones that I know of aren't that far down.
Generally, a car that has actually gone to pickles is one that hasn't been driven for very long. Look, I'm getting cars that should be repairable write-offs, and they are, the government needs to think of something, because we're throwing away too much money.
All right, thank you very much, Francisco. I'm sure you're going to get plenty of questions about that. Thomas, do you want to say a few words? Tell us about your experiences with the Ora Cats. Before we do, I just want... Thomas has actually had an IBF van, or a MIEV van, for a long time, haven't you?
Does anyone want a van?
I don't know, when I first joined the AEVA, I did a little run up to Mount Glorious, and Thomas wanted to join us, and he did a bit of a test run prior to see if he could come on the day. And am I right in remembering that you went to Turnbull to charge and got stuck on the ramp like 50 metres from the charger?
Yes.
Yes, that was unfortunate. So how did you actually get out of that?
RACQ. A man in a van showed up, and he just towed me up the last bit of the ramp and across the last bit of car park.
You know what? I found that towing the car and using the region charges it faster than...
That's crazy. All right, just over this way, mate. Just for the volume. So just next slide, Les. Just let us know about why you bought the car and anything that you've got to.
So that's a nice looking colour. I'm Thomas. This is my second EV, and my father over there, Norm, he tried to talk me out of getting my first EV. The Ora, for anyone who is unfamiliar with it, in China it is sold as, Ora is its own brand. It's the Ora How Mao or Ora Good Cat. Ora is a sub-brand of Great Wall Motors. Over here in Australia they're selling it as the GWM Ora. It is now the cheapest brand new EV you can buy. Once you get the grant, only $30,000. Conveniently 2 weeks after we bought ours. Champion little things. Good. These ones, the standard range model, are good for about 310 kilometres. Extended range, I think, is 420. But yeah, I've had that little van for since 2019, and back when I got it, it could only manage about 80 kilometres on a single charge around town. So 300 is plenty. I don't know what to do with it all. Champion little things. Don't really know.
Best things about it.
Best things about it. I'm yet to end up on the back of a tow truck. Yeah, the extra range is definitely quite a luxury to play with. The interior of it. The first time I sat in one at the RSEQ Motorfest, I was really quite blown away with. It feels a lot more expensive than it actually is. I remember the last new car I bought was a Suzuki Swift Sport, roughly the same price as this is now once you factor in the grant, and this feels a lot more expensive than that old Suzuki. So imagine if you had a car as cheap as the Swift that was electric. Imagine how expensive that would be electric. That would be absolutely champion. But no, I'm really blown away with how good this car is, the quality of it. A lot of fun to drive. So I've got in my pocket here my Union Diary, very nice. I was playing with one of the buttons in the car, the accelerator button, and my diary came out of my pocket. I was expecting to find it just behind the seat. It was, I'll keep talking and eventually it'll work.
10 seconds, right?
There we go.
That's about
Can you fix that delay?
That's about the sound my diary made, because I didn't find it behind the seat. I found it behind the rear seat. So it's quite a champion little thing.
The colour's beautiful.
Yeah, if you're going to get one, you have to get it in this colour. Thank you. You've got to get it in this colour, otherwise you have an all-black interior. We'll open them up afterwards. You'll have a look inside. Very nice beige and green. It's the only acceptable colour, and if you see any other colours out on the road, then they've made a bad choice.
So you said you really like those things. What was the biggest surprise about the vehicle? What you go like? You said about the being quite much about market interior, but is there another surprise?
So yeah, the interior quality was a surprise. Losing my diary was a surprise. Actually, getting the car was a bit of a surprise, because I was just about getting ready to settle down into hang on to my van for another 5 years. I had just bought myself some new number plates for it, the little Japanese ones that would actually fit into the slot, and then the very next day Dad said he was going to buy me one. And I thought, I can't put Japanese plates on a Chinese car, that'll be very awkward indeed. Yeah, it is, like I say, it feels a lot more expensive than it is. It's a lot quicker than I was expecting.
The regen?
Regen's pretty good. There are a few little software quirks, version 1.0, so some of the settings like single pedal driving decide to turn off every time you turn the car off, which is a little bit annoying, but I'm told that's going to be patched at some point. We'll find out.
Kev, you got a question?
Yeah.
What sort of efficiency do you get out kilowatt hours per 100?
I think it's about 14 per 100 kilometres, I think, off the top of my head. But
what was your van getting?
The van was about 16. 16 kilometres could do me 80 kilometres, so a bit more than 16 for 100. Yeah, it was as aerodynamic as a brick, so we can't blame it.
Yeah. Okay.
Disappointments? What are you a bit like?
You're pretty chuffed, aren't you?
Yeah, like I say, there are a couple of software quirks at the moment. To unlock the charging cable, I've got unlock, lock, unlock again, and then you can pull it out. But of course, nothing that can't be patched out so far. The hardware is sound. The software could have a little tweak here and there, but overall, I'm thoroughly impressed.
Has it got adaptive cruise control?
Yeah, adaptive cruise control, the lane keeping as well. Actually, that's a little funny. It'll come to a stop behind the car in front of you if they slow down and stop. And I was driving the other day with that, having good fun, and it stopped behind the car and started rolling back, and then put the parking brake on and made a hell of a noise.
What was happening?
Yeah, no, it just the parking brake going on as it was rolling backwards.
Oh, right.
So again, probably a software thing. Similarly, it doesn't use regenerative braking when it's got the adaptive cruise control on, which again, another software thing that I'd hope they would patch out, but...
Seems to be a Chinese thing, because the MGs...
yeah, I hear it is something
of a on the MG as well. So.
I hear that is something of a common complaint, but yeah, like I say, nothing that couldn't be patched out at some point.
Okay. All right, well, any other questions? Come up, Norm.
Bought it for a car.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want it.
He got given it.
Well, you know, I wanted a car.
Just over this way, buddy.
There's a camera.
Yeah. I wanted a car, see? And I thought, well, at my age, I've got solar, I've got a battery. So if I buy an EV, my fuel bills are sorted out for the rest of my life. And even with the battery and the solar and that, since I bought the car, which was about March 18, I've already made $160 from the grid, as well as charging the car. So that's not too bad. But what I do like about them is I bought it for some specific reasons. I didn't want to be driving something that looked like a desk with a whopping great big computer on the front of it. So it's less in your face.
It's more traditional.
It's more traditional, yeah. You know, like 6 months ago, I sold a 949 Jag, which is a little bit different. Bit of a challenge to drive, but it was a good car too. So I was looking for a car to drive, a set and forget. Thomas doesn't agree with me, but I've got that set on Eco Plus. And he says, but you can't go over 90 kilometres an hour. I said, well, I'll try. It does everything I want to do, even accelerate fast. But after I've done my big burnout or whatever I want to do, or driven at 110 k's, as soon as I ease back down, it goes back to Eco Plus.
I should point out though that the manual says that's not possible, so I think that's a software bug.
Mine's maybe I've got an anomaly there, but it works for me. He hasn't tried it in his. But that's the reason I bought it. And I was looking at a BYD Seal. And I thought, at my age, why do I need a larger family car that, you know, performs pretty impressively?
Get to the next set of traffic lights faster.
Exactly. Well, I've had my motorbike days. And so I didn't need that. No family, 2 people, occasionally might go, other people, might even do a little bit of camping, that sort of thing. We're going up to Tinkham Bay and that over the week, and I've already booked into a motel, and they said, yeah, just plug the granny charger into a lead. You can have power for free. Yeah. So, you know,
all right,
I'll go with
lovely.
that. So, but
well,
just a great car.
Thank you very much for bringing them in, and I'm sure everyone will have a closer look. Thank you very much, guys. That's it for tonight. Don't forget ICE Vovos, and well, last month there was nothing left, so I just thought I'll repeat that. So thank you very much, and we'll end it there. Thank you.